Okay, Assalamualaikum. Good morning to all.
Morning, sir.
Okay, so today we continue on our discussion ataupun the analysis, okay, that you can do using SPSS. Okay, so last Monday we already so I've shown you how to use the two sample t-test, okay, and also the simple cross tabulation pie chart, histogram, bar chart that you can use, okay, to answer your research question number 1 on the demographic characteristics of your respondent. And the second research question is about, okay, testing on the gender differences, okay, on the factors that affect or which is relevant to your topic, okay. So basically we want to look at if the factors or determinants related to your main the focus of your project, okay, whether there is any difference when it comes to gender, okay. So that is the purpose of using the two sample t-test. Okay, so today we're gonna finish up with the f-test, okay, or ANOVA. Okay, basically the approach is more or less the same, okay. So what we did the last Monday, okay. So the file which I created or from the example on last Monday, I did not save the file, so there is no new variable created here. So I will just do that quickly, okay. So what we did last Monday is we just create one variable, I think what we call section underscore B, okay, whereby we want to take the mean, okay, of all the Likert scale questions under section B, okay. So that was what we did last Monday lah. Okay, so we take the mean of B1 until B5. Okay, so the variable is created as a scale data, okay, whereby it is the mean of all the scores, okay, for the section B. Okay, so so you're going to repeat the process for all the Likert scale sections, okay. And I mentioned you need at least three part lah, or three sections in your Likert scale, okay. B, C, D, E or B, C and D lah at least. So you can have a number of analysis, okay. It's pretty much just repeating, ulang-ulang sajalah, okay. You just repeat all this analysis for research question number 2 using the two sample t-test. And research question number 3 is about if there is any difference, okay, when it comes to okay, so based on this simple data, okay, we know that the only component in the demographic section that only contain two groups will be the gender, okay, male and female lah, okay. So the rest of the section A I think will be whereby the group will be more than 2. For example, for race, we have Malay, Chinese, Indian, and others. Okay, for marital status, you got 3. Okay, for example, education level, you have 4. Okay, so depending on the characteristics of your respondent, so if the focus is on SAAB students, so there will be at least, I think, 4 groups, okay, 4 different programs under SAAB, or 4 to 5. Okay, if the focus is under UUM in general, so there will be 3 colleges, or the focus is on COB student, so there will be 6 different schools, okay, that you can categorize, that you can group them. Okay, so that is one of the, one of the example that you can use, okay, to look at if there are any differences, okay, when it comes to these different groupings. So for research question number 2, the 2 groups that the only possibility will be to use gender, okay, because that is the only component whereby I think we can separate the respondent into 2 groups. Okay, but for the F test or the ANOVA test, so basically what we can do is we can test for different type of demographic characteristics. For example, we can look for if there is any difference, okay, on the mean of the, okay, in this case, the factors that affect the cost of living. In this, for section B, will be set on salary. Okay, whether but on component B, okay, we can look at from different perspective. For example, you can choose on race, okay, on education level, okay, as long as there are 3 or more groups, okay, in the section. Okay, for example, okay, we go to compare means. So last Monday we used the independent sample t-test, okay, because we only compare between 2 groups. But when it comes to more than 3, okay, you need to choose one-way ANOVA. Okay, so the dependent list here will be section B. Okay, so we are interested to look at the factor or the whether the so section B will be on the salary. Okay, salary as the determinant of the cost of living. Okay, whether salary will affect the cost of living. Okay, and then the factor here is what is the grouping that we are interested to look from, meaning that if there is any difference on the salary, the salary factor determine on the to affect the cost of living from the perspective or based on, for example, race. Okay, Malay, Chinese, and Indian, and others lah. So there are 4 groups under race. So if you put, okay, under this post-hoc, okay, usually the options that common in the literature will be LSD, okay. So, and equal variance not assumed, usually we use this first option here, T2, okay, and then significance level 5%. Okay, so this is what we get lah. Okay, actually the main one will be this one, this ANOVA. Okay, so the post-hoc test, I think we don't really want to discuss too much, because this is actually just looking at between 2 groups at a time, Malay and Chinese, Malay and Indian, and then basically the value will be repeat. But I think we do not want to focus on this post-hoc test. Okay, so, but the one that we are interested is just on the ANOVA. Okay, so just what you learn in your basic statistics. For ANOVA, the one that is just like the independent sample t-test that we discussed on Monday. Okay, the easiest way to determine whether you can reject or do not reject the null hypothesis will be based on this p-value. Okay, of course you can use the F-test statistics and refer to the degrees of freedom 2 and 27 in the F table. Okay, and then compare the calculated F value 1.4. Okay, using 5% level of significance, because all the tests by default, okay, in SPSS is based on 5% alpha. Okay, but you can just refer to this 0.259. I mean the significance, this p value. Okay, and then compare whether it is bigger or smaller than 5%. So of course, this is 0.259, meaning that it's around 26%. So 26% means is definitely bigger than 5% lah, 5% level of significance. So when it's bigger means that you cannot reject H0. Okay, so your H0 and your H1, okay, will be what you have learned before lah in your basic statistics. Okay, go back and check your notes on ANOVA. Okay, if you are comparing more than 3 population or more than 3 group of sample, okay, in our case we are comparing the groups based on race. So we have in the sample here, okay, they are, so I think the respondents are only based on 3 groupings: Malay, Chinese, and Indian. So your H0, okay, your H0 and your H1 will be the mean of the score, okay, mean mu1 equals to mu2, okay, equals to mu3, okay, and this mu will be the mean score of salary, okay, base mean will be the mean score of salary for one, let's say is for Malay, okay, 2 will be for Chinese, and mu3 will be for Indian. So this is the mean score of the salary factor for Malay, mean factor, the mean value of the salary factor for Chinese, and the mean salary factor for Indian. Okay, because what we did just now is we use the section B. So section B, so let's say B is the salary factor that affect the cost of living. So we want to determine whether the salary factor as a determinant of the cost of living, is there any difference on the salary factor by race? Okay, so when we group them together into by race, we want to know whether the mean salary of male workers, the mean salary of the Chinese workers, and also the mean salary of the Chinese Indian workers. Okay, so is there any difference on the mean factor which affect the cost of living? So this will be your H0, okay, and then your H1 will just be at least one mean is not at least one is not equal. Okay, so you check back your notes how to reconstruct or how to construct your null and alternate hypothesis, okay, based on the F-test. Okay, I'm not going to teach you basic statistics again, or you can refer to any journal or thesis, okay, how to construct the proper null and alternate hypothesis, okay, for F-test using the ANOVA testing. So what we can conclude from this simple example, okay, is that because we cannot reject, means there is no significant difference lah between race, okay, when it comes to the salary factor. So you can decide which factor that you want to investigate, okay, based on what you think is the most interesting or important factor when it comes to the topic of your choice. I mean your group topic. So for example, let's say if you're looking at in terms of the decision to engage or to do entrepreneurial activity, okay, menjadi usahawan, to become entrepreneur. Okay, so maybe you want to group according to according to CGPA grouping, for example, first class, second class upper, second class lower, or you can group them according to, let's say, the cost structure. Okay, when you want to look whether there is any difference on the one of the determinant to become entrepreneur, okay, when it comes to cost structure, okay, economic program versus finance program versus bachelor in banking, for example, and bachelor in agribusiness. So the process is the same. Just go to analyze, compare means, okay, and then one way ANOVA. So if you got 3 sections under your Likert scale, so you can analyze, let's say section B, you want to look for race, okay. And then you can also look at section B, let's say for education level, for example. Okay, so let's say we use this education level, okay, to analyze section B. So this is the result when it comes to education, because here I think the result is not significant because the size of the sample is very small, it's only 30. Okay, but that's why in the real world research, sample size will be more than 30 lah. Usually 200, 250, 300 sample size, depending on the size of your population. Okay, usually when it comes to research, the sample size will be bigger than 30 lah, but this is just for individual project, so that's why the sample size is small. Okay, but I believe okay, every group, okay, you need to have okay, a bigger sample size based on the size of the population. Okay, so you may get, you know, more, you might get significant results, okay, when it comes to comparing using ANOVA or the independent t-test. Okay, so this is, so again, the conclusion is based on the p-value. Okay, or you can just use the f-test value or the p-value. Okay, as long as you can come out with the correct decision whether to reject or do not reject H0. So here is still the same, is 67%, which is bigger than 5%. So we cannot reject H0. If it is smaller than 5%, then we can reject H0. So when it comes to groupings of by education level, still factor B, okay, factor salary, okay, section B, okay, let's say section B is based on salary. So there is no difference in the mean value of the salary factor grouped by according to education level. Okay, so you can do 2 or 3 groupings. Okay, for example, and what we did just now is we did section B, one by the race, okay, and the other one by education level. Okay, so and then you can do for section C, for example. Okay, so this one I only create for section B, so you can do another one. So you need to do for each section. So section B, okay, so you can repeat the process. Let's say section B you do for race and education level, and then for section C you can also do for race and education level, and section C and section D you can also use again race and education level, meaning that you can compare your analysis, which factor that you find significant when it comes to race and education level, okay, between among the 3 factors, section B, section C, and section D. So these are 3 different factors that affect the cost of living. Okay, so and you analyze based on ANOVA, okay, and then you can compare. Maybe the finding will be, let's say, section B for salary, okay, education level does not play important role, meaning that it is not significant. But when you analyze based on section C, let's say section C is the prices of goods and services, harga barangan. Okay, but when it comes to education level, when it comes to prices of goods and services factor, maybe education level will become significant. Okay, so and this is just, you know, and then you need to find what is the reason lah. Okay, when it comes to writing the result section, so this one I will discuss next Monday. Okay, when it comes to preparing or writing your report, okay, it is not just mentioning whether you reject or do not reject. Okay, so in academic writing you need to justify, you need to explain what will be the reason for you not to reject or to reject, and then you need to compare, for example, with the past studies in the literature review. So that is the purpose of literature review, and because you can compare your findings, compare with other people's the previous literature findings, and whether what you find in your project is it similar to what other people have found in their own project, in their own paper. So when you read the thesis, okay, or journal papers, so this is how you need to write your chapter 4. Okay, it is not just simply reject and do not reject, full stop. Okay, so you need to explain the reason. What will be the possible reason if you do not reject? Why is that factor is not significant? Is your finding similar to Mr. X, Mr. Y, Mr. Z, okay? The papers that you already mentioned in your chapter 2. Okay, so this I will highlight again, okay, on our next class next Monday, okay, to discuss on the chapter 4 structure, okay, because this week the focus is just on the SPSS, what you can use, how you can use SPSS to answer your research objectives, okay, and then so next Monday, so basically next week, okay, the focus will be on how to present your chapter 4, okay, from from the demographics section, okay, until you actually answer all your research questions, okay, that you highlight, that you already provide in chapter 1, okay. You got 3 research questions, so how do you arrange or organize your chapter 4? So that it's easier to know that, okay, this part is to answer research question number 1. This subsection is to answer research question number 2, and this part is to answer research question number 3. So every analysis that you do must be well structured lah, meaning it's easy to follow. Okay, and then whatever that you present must be relevant to. At the end of the day, you must go back to what is the objective of your study? What is your research question? What is your research objective? So you don't do analysis that is not related to your research question or your research objective. Okay, it must be consistent. So as long as you can answer those research questions, okay, and provide enough evidence to support, to show that you have answered your research question, that will be fine lah. But what I have mentioned this week and also the previous week, okay, especially on the use of the independent t-test, okay, to answer research question 2, and finally the use of ANOVA, okay, to answer research question 3. So make sure that, okay, the presentation of the graph as well, okay, how you present your F table, okay, so do not simply copy and paste directly what you get from SPSS lah, because it doesn't look nice. So you need to you can copy this, okay, and put it in a different nicer table lah, using Microsoft Word or Excel. Okay, again, you can refer to other theses and journals, see how researchers, okay, present their output, okay, in their chapter 4 or in their findings section, so that whatever format or whatever layout of your table is consistent with the academic format lah. Okay, it's not too fancy, not too colorful. Okay, we do not want to very colorful table. Okay, but you can use colorful table in your presentation, in your video presentation. Okay, but when it comes to writing in your report, okay, it must be the simple version, but easy to follow and very kata nice looking table lah, and output, or whether table, figures, okay, charts, pie charts, or whatever. Okay, so the key is to refer to past studies, look at how other people present their findings. Okay, so you don't simply create your own format, but follow what other people have done. So because the overall marks of your project, okay, is also based on how well you present your findings. Okay, not just the quality of the writing, but also the overall layout. Okay, especially when it comes to chapter 4. Okay, there will be many tables, many figures, many charts. Okay, so you want them to be as presentable as possible. Okay, so I think that is what is required for ANOVA. Okay, and of course you can do other simple analysis, as I mentioned last Monday, which is on the correlation. Okay, so you can do simple correlation. This can be part of your research question number 1, number 2, or number 3. You need to decide on your own. Okay, you cannot okay, you do not need to ask me every single thing that, okay, whether you can do this, you can do that, okay. So correlation is one of the common analysis as well. Pearson correlation, okay. So basically you want to look at correlation between two variables, whether there is any relationship, whether the relationship is positive or negative relationship. Okay, so that will give you a better idea, okay, how you can actually explain the behavior between two variables. Okay, so you decide which variable that you want to correlate, but at the end of the day, uh, that correlation output must serve some purpose. Okay, that it must be related to your thesis. Okay, must be related to your research question. So you can use a correlation analysis, for example, to answer research question number 1 on the demographic characteristics. So basically, for example, you want to look at the correlation between gender, okay, and for example, I mean, because we only create one part here, okay, so we can only have one lah. So for example, you want to look at whether there is any correlation between gender and the score factor, okay, for salary. Okay, so what we find here is the correlation factor will be 0.155, which is very small lah, meaning that is 0.155 is meaning that is just around 15%. Okay, so this is, and you cannot actually reject the null hypothesis. So you already learned on this correlation test, Spearman or Pearson. Okay, if you don't want to know more, okay, you can just simply Google on YouTube. Okay, what is the meaning of correlation? How you can interpret them? Okay, so you can try and error which variable or which pair of variables will give you some additional information to help you answer your research question. Okay, so you can have one or two or three correlation output. Okay, no need to be so many correlation tests. Okay, because it's just to provide some, some background information, okay, of the variables that you have in your system, okay, or in your data, in your questionnaire. Okay, so you can have this correlation table. Okay, if you add more, okay, so what SPSS will do is just provide a bigger table like this. Okay, so you can see the correlation between gender and section B, okay, and then gender and tanggungan, okay, gender and marital status. Okay, so you can see again how other theses present their correlation output. Okay, it's just a simple table whereby you can show the value of the correlation and how you can interpret the correlation output. Okay, so you can see whether the correlation is positive and how high and what is the degree of the correlation. Okay, usually anything above 0.5 is considered quite strong lah, or 60% or 70%. Okay, for example, between gender and section B is only 15%, which is very low. Gender and tanggungan is even less, 0.05. Okay, it's even less than 1%. So this is a very low value of correlation. I mean, I'm just simply, but at the end of the day, you need to have some logical correlation. I mean, do not simply click correlation, okay, and choose the pairing without any meaning lah. Dia tak ada logic. Okay? Dia tak ada, you don't simply correlate, for example, gender and, whether female or male, and then you correlate based on, for example, let's say apa tu gender and, for example, age. Okay, age. So you cannot say that, okay, between age and gender, if you are female, then you will live longer, for example. Okay, positively correlation between age and gender. It doesn't really make sense lah. Okay, but gender versus income level, then maybe you can say that, okay, if positive income level if the respondent are male, for example. Okay, compare to if the respondent are female with income level. So at least you can have some story lah. Okay, when it comes to uh, when it comes to the value of the correlation. But I think what you need to do for the correlation test, okay, it is not meant, usually it's only meant for scale data, meaning data that is based on one single value. For example, age, CGPA pointer, income, the salary. So you cannot, usually it's not meant for data based on, of course, when you click, you can still get the output, okay, but you cannot really actually interpret. For example, status. Okay, status because you do not know whether this is married or unmarried, okay, single or married people, okay. But if you base on CGPA pointer, then you can see whether the higher is the pointer, the between pointer and let's say intention to become entrepreneur. Okay, so usually correlation test will be based on scale data. Okay, so I already discussed last Monday what is scale, nominal, and ordinal. Okay, scale data is only that it only takes one value in your questionnaire. Okay, but and you cannot be based on grouping like this because here you cannot see which one is actually you are referring to. Okay, so for scale, for correlation, okay, so you need to choose correlation based on scale data. Okay, again, if you need to refer to past thesis, past journals, see what are the common correlation output, okay, variables that people use, okay, in their thesis or in their journal. Okay, and then you can follow the same style of correlation test and put it in your own project. Okay, so I think that is what I want actually to explain today. Okay, on the correlation test. So what we have done, so I will not be sharing anymore on SPSS because I think the rest you can experiment on yourself. Okay, you can use YouTube or any other materials on the internet, okay, to help you explore what you can do, how to actually utilize SPSS. So of course, what I have shown you is the basic stuff, okay. So if you want to employ additional tests, okay, as long as it is that you find in the thesis and you think that those analysis is relevant to your project, okay, even though I did not teach you how to do that, you can still include in your thesis. So that will be like an additional point okay, in your project. Okay, so that's, you don't need, so anything extra, anything additional analysis, as long as you can explain the analysis correctly, okay, and the relevance of that analysis to your research question, so that will be fine for me. Okay, so no need to just follow word by word or exactly what I only mentioned in the tutorial or in the lecture. So you can explore, there are so many other things you can do, okay, in SPSS, but at the end of the day, okay, it must go back to your research question and your research objectives. Okay, so some papers even use regression, okay, whereby you have dependent and independent variables in your, so you can refer to the thesis, okay, that we use in the lecture. I think thesis number 57 ke apa ke, I can't remember. Okay, whereby the thesis apply regression analysis, okay, in the questionnaire. So you can use that as well. So don't limit your analysis only based on what I've shown you. So of course, what I've shown you is to make life more, easier on your part. Okay, in like for example, research question 1, I mentioned you only analyze on the demographic factor. Research question 2 is to look at gender differences. And research question number 3 is to look at other factors, okay, other groupings that will affect your the factors, okay, which is relevant to your topic, okay, whether it's cost of living, intention to use online, intention, to become entrepreneur, or whatever topic lah, okay, whether the impact of COVID-19, government policy. So as long as you have that in your Likert scale sections, and you can do that analysis using F and T test, so that is fine for me. Okay, so you can so at the end of the day, what I am interested is to see how you answer your research question. Okay, so I provided the guideline, okay, how you can write research question 1, 2, and 3. Okay, but if you want to modify slightly, okay, change slightly, but what I require, at least, there will be a T test, independent T test, and also the ANOVA F test. Okay, so that is part of the analysis that is required in your thesis. Any additional one you can add as well. Okay, so there is no I don't want to be too strict, okay, when it comes to you can only do this, you cannot do that. Okay, so if you want to provide more, so you may get, like, more marks or more higher marks when it comes to exploring new methods or new analysis. Okay, so I think today will be a short video, okay, or a short lecture. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time repeating the same stuff.